Right, I think it's 12 o'clock. I think we can begin proceedings. I'd like to just formally welcome everybody to Project Indela's webinar entitled Pathways to Legality. And I'm speaking to you in my capacity as publisher and editor of Cannabis Africa, which is really, I'm really here just to introduce everybody and to be a channel of communication for the things that come out of this meeting. And we're really honored to have with us this afternoon the Deputy Minister from the Presidency, Pinky Kekana, who's kindly joined us to give an ear to what the cannabis industry is saying. And I'm not going to do a whole CV and proper introduction other than to say that she has been a long friend of cannabis reform, which originated, as we all know, within the presidency. And she has been really supporting the activities of the cannabis industry in trying to come here as, in trying to develop ourselves as a legal entity in this confusing morass of what is now regulations. I appeal to everybody that this is, we're going to have this webinar in a spirit of positivity. I know there are a lot of high feelings around regulations and legality, but this is a time where that we can take the law into our own hands, not in a negative way, but we have the opportunity here of being able to structure and shape cannabis legislation that's coming up in the future. And it's a big, big deal for us to have the honor of Ms. Pinky Kekana. And I'd like to straight away hand over to you and welcome you as our special guest. And we're very grateful that you're here to give us an ear and listen and hopefully take our message back home to the presidency. Ms. Kekana, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm trying to open my camera. I'm not sure if you are able to see me. No?
No, we can't at the moment, but don't let that stop you. If you want to just go ahead without the camera, we can do that.
Oh,
there
okay.
We are.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thanks to the participants. Let me greet the leadership of South African Cannabis Club Alliance. Greetings to the leadership of South African Cannabis and Hemp Industrial Development Association. Greetings to the leadership of Marijuana Board of South Africa and Field of Green for All. Greetings to all the stakeholders and participants in this webinar. Program Director, I think the best starting point is to state that we as a country have been debating and discussing this topic since 1961. What have we done and where is the visible progress so far? So in 2009, the government took the decision to adopt an outcomes-based approach. And in simple terms, this approach means that the South African government is in the business of changing lives. Everything we do must have an impact. Our tasks as the political leadership is to provide strategic guidance and to ensure that our oversight responsibilities is not aimed at measuring the number of meetings and or counting the number of reports produced. What problem are we trying to solve? There is a legislative problem. Cannabis is controlled under the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs of 1961, as amended by the 1972 Protocol, Schedule 1 and 4, of which South Africa is a signatory to. The regulation is outdated and it has to be reviewed so that we can develop the cannabis and hemp sector in order to secure inclusion, investment, job creation, addressing the crisis of rural poverty and fiscal benefits to the state. Once the Cannabis for Private Purpose Act becomes operational, cannabis can be removed from the Drug and Drug Trafficking Act of 1992. You know it better, Act number 140 of 1992, the DDTA. And this enables the amendment of the schedules to the Medicines and Related Substances Act. It provides for targeted regulatory reform of the Plant Breeders' Rights Act of 1976, Act number 15 of 1976. Amendments to the Plant Improvement Act of 1976, Act number 53 of 1976, as well as other pieces of legislation that require amendment to allow for the industrialization and commercialization of the cannabis sector. The Cannabis for Private Purpose Act regulations have not been promulgated. Currently, the Department of Justice is developing regulations for the implementation of the Act. In terms of the Cannabis for Private Purpose Act, the trade in cannabis remains illegal. Now, this webinar comes at a critical point. It is taking place on the eve of South Africa's G20 summit. Our presidency is anchored on the theme solidarity, equality, and sustainability. All these words are significant to our discussion today. We are in this together, and I'm here also to listen to yourselves. Now, Program Director, as government representative in this webinar, I want to state the following. The judgment in the Minister of Justice versus Prince case handed down on September 18, 2018 found that criminalizing the use, possession, and cultivation of cannabis by adults in private was unconstitutional. And this judgment led to the development of Cannabis for Private Purpose Act. Draft regulations to the Act are currently under final review, and public comments are expected by May 2025. I know we are now around November. We should then track where are we so far. Cabinet took a decision in July 2019 that the country needs a national strategy to commercialize cannabis in order to increase economic growth, create jobs, poverty, to alleviate poverty, and the National Cannabis Master Plan was developed. So the DTIC Minister, Minister Pakstow, has been appointed by the 7th administration to lead the implementation of the Hemp and Cannabis Master Plan. The master plan has not been signed by social partners because it does not fully address the hemp sector and the fundamentals of building an infant industry. A review of the master plan is underway to ensure a shared vision and secures reciprocal action-oriented commitments between industry, government, and labor for long-term sustainability and growth of the sector. Medical cannabis is legal, and currently, SAFRA has issued approximately 120 licenses, only export permittable production. Industrial hemp falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Agriculture, and I'm aware of 1,408 hemp permits that have been issued so far. The sale of recreational cannabis remains prohibited. The surge in illegal and regulated sales has contributed to a growing public health crisis. To ensure the inclusion of legacy farmers, mentorship, community upliftment schemes, and a pilot project are to be launched to integrate them into the legal cannabis supply chain. So Minister Tau has requested 3 streams of urgent work. The first stream will be on the regulatory reform and institutional arrangement. The second stream looks at quick wins within the current regulatory framework. And the third stream looks at a comprehensive implementation plan or program of action. So my statement demonstrates progress, but it also recognizes that we still have a lot to do. So this webinar is about bringing private sector and community organizations to lobby for future cannabis regulations to be inclusive, science-based, and fair. I would like to encourage participants to make use of the master plan review process. This process will allow us to collectively own and understand the problem statement so that we can collectively develop a vision that is owned by all of us. I have been exposed to the regulatory sandbox, which is a government-controlled space for testing new markets, models, and services under supervision before full regulatory implementation. Furthermore, the sandbox supports innovation by temporarily relaxing legal constraints to enable controlled experimentation. Additionally, the sandbox will enhance regulatory agility, providing clarity on permissible innovation while safeguarding public interest. And lastly, it must result in data-driven policy development, shaping future laws and informing pricing models. So let's support this sandbox. Fellow webinar participants, as I conclude, the hemp and cannabis sector has a huge potential in terms of large-scale hemp cultivation and processing, that is manufacturing value addition across the farming, feeds, foods, fibers, and fractions demand pathways, as well as mine rehabilitation and remediation. Building on the existing export-facing SAFRA licenses to secure investment and growth in the cannabis sector with a focus on exclusion of indigenous knowledge communities. Development and inclusion of SMMEs in the cannabis and hemp value chain remains critical. Attracting domestic and foreign investment, technology transfer, and entry into the supply chains is also some of the things that government will support. Value addition in processing and manufacturing of various products for local as well as export markets are some of the things that this program will bring. And lastly, rural development, employment opportunities, and poverty alleviation for previously marginalized communities. Now, as I said, my task as requested by the organizers is to listen. However, I'm going to go beyond listening. I'm going to listen and take your message back to my colleagues. Where we agree, let's focus on implementation. Why? Because we are in the business of changing lives. So thank you very much for this opportunity, but just one correction to you, Program Director. I'm no longer Deputy Minister in the Presidency. I'm the Deputy Minister for Public Service and Administration. But anyway, I come a long way with this program of cannabis, and that's why I agreed to participate in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kekana, and I'm sorry about the mistake there. But as a fellow Limpopoan from Bella Bella, you'll forgive me for that. Bertus, would you like to take over now? But I wonder, we do have Mr. John Jeffries from the DTIC with us, and I wonder whether this would be an opportune time to invite him to say a couple of words if he would like to. We're very honored to have his presence here. Mr. Jeffries, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Brett.
Yes, hi, welcome.
Look, I had some problems connecting, so I was only able to hear part of Deputy Minister Kekana's speech. By the way, I'm employed by TIPS, Trade Industrial Policy Strategies, and then which is then working with DTIC as project manager. Have been since the beginning of June. So it's not actually DTIC per se, but it's working with them. I'd rather, I think, contribute in the after the inputs and the discussion, particularly because I didn't hear Deputy Minister Kekana's full speech. So can we leave it like that for now, Brett?
We're very happy with that, John. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll, in that case, hand over to you, Albertus.
Okay, greetings. Thank you, everybody. I'm just switching on my camera here. 1 second. Yeah, thank you so much for everyone that has joined us here today. And to Pinky, I just want to applaud you on your message now. You know, it aligns with everything that we are trying to accomplish. And today's online meeting is the first hosted by SACCA in a series of meetings, you know, in the vision to contribute towards the National Cannabis Dialogue, which is facilitated through the Marijuana Board of South Africa, which I also represent as a Western Cape representative. And the vision with this is to assist government in the policy making process, because as a public sector, you know, we already sit with all the resources and the answers. You know, it's not a new market. We just need to formalize that. So today we'll be running through a program to engage in a couple of panel discussions. We also blessed honored to have some representatives of various associations and organizations, such as the Marijuana Board of South Africa, the South African Cannabis and Hemp Industry Development Association. And then we've also, I'm not sure whether we've got the African Cultural Heritage Trust here today. And then we've also got a representative of Fields of Green for All, and as well as various stakeholders in the industry, which represents multiple club networks and clubs. So what we want to do is just to inform government on the situation on the ground, to assist them in shaping regulations that align with what the people want. You know, we've got thousands of technically illegal, let's call it a quote-unquote grey zone, operating in a grey zone at the moment, which don't intend to participate in any criminal activity. You know, these provide massive opportunities to create job opportunities and tax revenue. And whilst our indigenous communities are being completely left out, they're being pushed out unwillingly, where they always sustain their livelihoods on the black market. They now, you know, they always sustain their lives on the black market. Sorry, guys, this is my first meeting, so forgive me if my communication is not completely on point. But the point I want to make is we cannot leave our marginalized communities behind. And the thing is, you as government, I've seen there was the beautiful Rastafari rights roundtable hosted by Fields of Green in March this year, where they spoke with the South African Human Rights Council. And, we've established all these issues. What we want to do today is not to, tell government where the issues are. We want to address those issues and provide the solutions. So with that, we've collaborated with various associations to start putting policy papers together. In a nutshell, the big issue is here, our current policy is focused on medicinal and on hemp. But we've got this massive unregulated market in between, which represents the majority of the market. It's great. We've got the hemp sorted out and the industrialization is going. But we need to formalize this market and allow people to participate in this industry. Now, we've realized that there's certain things preventing us, like the 1962 UN Convention. But, there are legal rationale and clauses which allow us to still deschedule cannabis either on the Medicines Act or remove it from there. So with that, we've got some other associations here today as well. If there's anything that you want to add on that, I think from here I just want to hand over to Marijuana Board of South Africa. So that they can introduce themselves, and then after that, Sachido. Okay, is Chidiso or Tabo here?
Thank you. Good evening, colleagues. My name is Chidiso, and I'm the national chairperson. Thank you for honoring our meeting and making sure that we are part of the national dialogue. It's a very important dialogue that we are having. As you can see, government is responding to us. Let's not underestimate them. We need to take it all the way to the ward systems. We need to take it to our local municipalities, so that we don't leave everybody behind, because the biggest challenge in South Africa is that information dissemination is still orientated in an old manner. So I'm honored to be here, and I'll just hand over to my director, Rastabo.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you very much. We're very pleased to be here and to the realization of the dialogue, that the dialogue is continuing. And we're highly honored as well by the presence of the Minister, Deputy Minister Kekana. And ours is to say we are very grateful that out of all the analysis that she has said on the sandbox, because that's where the challenge is. We all agree that selling of cannabis remains illegal, however, until the commercialization is finalized. Yet the breach must be very clear that in the meantime, sandbox should work, and realization of laws must be very, very implemented. Because of the Pakistan Action Lab was a breakthrough in that regard. That is why the sandbox. And how do we safeguard against unnecessary arrests, while we acknowledge the challenges of harm reduction in as far as the concerns of the public and government, that how do we make sure that while we practice safely, that cannabis that is distributed to the community remains safe. That goes to processes of testing, and that should include our CSIR, because the government has offered CSIR to work with, so that they assist us, so that they are also on board in this regard, so that while we practice, and what will give as a model to the government prior to commercialization, because of in terms of the cannabis master plan, is that 2026-2027 commercialization should start. And that can only happen when we as the industry, we prove that we are practicing safely. However, the challenge of interpretation in that regard, so we need a serious moratorium that we've agreed upon, that unnecessary arrests should stop, and so that we're able to say who and who not can be arrested, because of we've got structures and we've got systems, we've got club systems, we've got Dakas Paza shops, we've got farmers. The industry is so organized that the government, we should just report to them. And I'm glad that we're on a dialogue, and we should, as we can and aim for a national summit and would request the government to support us on the national summit, so that because that is the purpose of dialogues, to hear what the people are saying. And we as Marijuana Board, we wouldn't say much. We're just a leader of the industry, and then the constituency must say, and hence this platform, that the government and everybody can hear what the people of the industry are saying. And that is the point that I would love to reiterate, to say that the systems are there. Let's collect the data. Let's give it to the government. However, let everybody be on board and not corner by corner, but let us be at some time, try to be together. That goes for SAPS, that goes for SAFRA, that goes for DTIC, that goes for public, and that goes for all these relevant institutions, that they, so that we can be able to talk one thing and agree finally. And they would propose for 2026, 20th April, as we know, it's commonly known as 420, that we can host a national summit. And however, we think that we should try to have either 70 or 60% of it to be physical, because we know that technology is there to assist us. But in my African language, and I don't like to go much on the laws, that since we all know that somewhere there's been unjustness on the part of lawmaking, including even the private peoples. However, we understand very well that the country and the government wouldn't just open. There are those factors that should be considered, including harm reduction, as I've alluded here. However, in this regard, we should start to speak one common language, that sandboxing is there, and it should be known, and up until to the Minister of Police or the Deputy, since there are issues in the SAPS, and the Director, Masemula, I think, should be part of that, so that the clear message is sent to the police that clubs that are certified, spaza shops that are certified, and cultivators that are certified, and then we should start as an industry to start to suggest a reasonable limitation of the THC versus the 2%, because it doesn't make sense, so that we do not have good and law-abiding citizens criminalized because of antagonistic laws. So in that regard, I would think that the summit would assist us. The Marijuana National Indaba, we need a support for it. I give thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Tabu. Could we hand over to Kian? Would you like to just briefly introduce yourself? Are you, yep, Kian McLean from SACCA.
Great, thank you, Albertus. Greetings, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this very important dialogue. But firstly, just want to put forward our apologies from our chairman, Mr. Katlego Kopotse, who's not able to make it today. So just a very quick background on the organization, just to help give some context of where we're coming from. So the South African Cannabis and Hemp Industry Development Association, or SACCA, is a federation of organizations, associations, and working groups across the cannabis and hemp value chains. United by a shared vision for sustainable industry growth, we strive to bring together key role players to help drive policy reform, promote fair trade, and unlock opportunities for farmers, processors, and innovators. And a central core of our mission is the recognition and integration of indigenous knowledge systems, ensuring that traditional wisdom, cultural heritage, and community-based practices are respected and included in modern cannabis and hemp economy. One of our founding members was the African Cultural Heritage Trust, which has been in the IKS space for over 40 years. Through collaboration, advocacy, and knowledge sharing, we seek to build a well-regulated, inclusive, and globally competitive sector that delivers lasting economic and social impacts for South Africa. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are a federation. There are many organizations that are doing very good work in the sector, and our objective is not to replace or overshadow those organizations, but it's rather to form a platform where organizations working in different aspects or different sectors within this industry can come together to talk. There are lot of silos, and I think that one of the most important aspects of helping to move this industry forwards is that we start working together, we start breaking down the walls of those silos. We can't all be responsible for or represent all aspects of this industry. It is so large, and it is proper that there are individual organizations that are looking at different sectors within the industry. But I think it's very important to have a platform where those different organizations can come together and share their vision and work together for lasting and sustainable development. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you very much, Kian. I wonder, Albertus, if we could just, Johan Slabber from Nexus said, has been working on some interesting initiatives as well, and he has limited time, whether we should just take him quickly now. Would you be all right with that? Johan, are you there?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let me just greet everyone. I'm just taking it off. My signal is quite bad. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I would just like to say thank you, first of all, to Project Indela and all participating associations for creating this vital platform. Thank you to Ms. Pinky Kekana and all the government support. I mean, we've received immense support from government in this regard, where Ms. Kekana is not even directly involved with any of the cannabis-related legislation and support. However, from a personal capacity, she's shown immense interest and going back to her colleagues and putting a lot of pressure on them. So as Nexus Pharma, to give some background, myself, I've been in this space for almost a decade now, but as Nexus Pharma, we strongly support the call for inclusive, science-based and fair cannabis regulatory frameworks. You know, South Africa's journey has been significant from the prohibition under 1992, like Pinky said, to the Constitutional Court ruling. It's been quite a long road, and, you know, it's been almost a decade, and we get to be seen as a global player in this space. And we are supposed to be one of the biggest, you know, in the world. So our message is simple. Regulation must protect consumers while enabling legitimate businesses, creating jobs, and uplifting rural communities. We as Nexus Pharma are committed to full compliance with GMP-based processing and export readiness aligned with international standards. We currently have one manufacturing facility in Gauteng, and with the support of Ms. Kekana in Cape Town, we've managed to sign a 10-ton offtake order with the third biggest German company in Germany called Innova Pharma. So we thank government for recognizing the potential of the sector, and we urge continued dialogue between policymakers and industry to unlock South Africa's cannabis economy responsibly and sustainably. And to conclude, the future of South Africa's cannabis sector depends on collaboration between traditional growers, private clubs, and licensed operators, ensuring that every pathway contributes to a unified and responsible industry. And that's why we're all here today, not for judgment, but as an opportunity for collaboration and partnership, so that we could all work together towards a unified and credible path forward for the cannabis industry. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you, Johan. Albertus, back to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Johan. Thanks for that. I think if we proceed to the program, to the panel discussion, and just give some insight on Project Indela and what this proposed solution is, how can we unravel the policy framework and help government shape regulations. They've indicated that they're open to listen to us. So now we need to figure out how we can do this together. So SACCA initially was born through, it was founded in August 2025 after continuous efforts by the cannabis social club sector to establish an association through which we can amplify our voice to government. Our primary goal initially is to formalize the cannabis social club sector and to ensure that clubs are legally recognized in upcoming legislation. Since the 2018 privacy judgment, we have seen a massive surge of cannabis outlets all operate on various models. This phenomena has shifted a previous black market which sustained livelihoods of our indigenous communities into an unregulated grey market. This unwillingly pushes, this excludes them from the economy once again. Our traditional leaders today can testify our nation's beautiful indigenous people have been prosecuted for a plant which is so sacred to them, only due to misinformed policies which are still based on outdated apartheid regime-based laws. It is very important to note that many of these people never had any intention to break the law or become criminals. Now today we see cannabis pop-ups around every corner without any disturbance from law enforcement, whilst the Rasta mother growing a few plants in a garden gets arrested and her property has to be seized. This provides a massive challenge to government and law enforcement, as there are no real regulations in place to control this diverse market. We come bringing good news today to our policymakers and to our traditional leaders and all the advocates of cannabis who have fought the struggle for many, many years. It really doesn't have to be like this anymore. We, as the resilient people of South Africa, we have the power to reach our hands out to government and guide them to pioneer global standard of cannabis policy. Here on the tip of Africa, we are uniquely positioned to become the cannabis capital of the world. We always hear our government saying they want to become the global leaders in the export of cannabis. But the only way we can really accomplish this is if government allows us the grace to reclaim the plant which belongs to our people. We have all the resources at our disposal to assist government in building the industry. We have the policy papers, we have the compliance models, and we have the people, we have the software, whilst an entire nation is sitting on the edges of their seat, burning for an opportunity to participate in this industry. Today, on the 11th of the 11th, let us unite and transition from an era of prohibition into an era of prosperity. It is very important to highlight that we cannot leave our indigenous people behind in this industry, as they are the custodians of the plant who preserved it for us all throughout prohibition. We are not here to give government more work. We are here to do the work for them. Project Indela means the way forward. And the purpose of this meeting today, as I said, is to introduce government to the various associations and organizations which represent the cannabis industry and present them with a solution which can unlock the entire cannabis economy value chain. So initially, we started with a proposal which we formed to submit to DTIC to form part of the IKS sandbox. Now, the main concept behind this is a regional processing hub. The idea behind that is a processing hub must be municipally backed. It doesn't mean it has to be municipally funded. It just means that it has the required authority to operate legally. And a hub functions as a processing facility for indigenous communities. You know, the only way we can legally cultivate cannabis to sell it at the moment is for export or medicinal purposes. And, you know, that excludes our entire market. We need to look at a more tiered-based licensing structure, almost like a GMP light or a GAP. So our suggestion is, of course, first to remove cannabis from the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, because we can't treat it from a criminal perspective. We need to treat it as an agricultural good. So if we can remove it from there, we need to now, we need to now engage with all the industry experts, and that's why we are so thankful for the support from SACCA and Fields of Green for All, because it's important to highlight that at present SACCA is moderated and administered within my individual capacity. So the intention is to reach out invitations. My suggestion is perhaps to start off with the various provincial representatives of Marijuana Board of South Africa, so that we can have more effective and more formal structures in place to present these meetings in future. And the thing is, we just need to grow the strength of SACCA, because I'm an IT guy. I don't have a legal degree. I don't have a business degree. So I'm figuring this out throughout our interactions with the cannabis industry. since the 2018 judgment. So with that being said, we all want the same thing here. We have found that our vision is aligned, and that is why it's important to have a democratic dialogue so that we can ensure that no one is left out, and that we all agree on the same principles. So with this being said, on the SACCA website, we've on an open forum, we've released a draft policy paper on how we see the regulations shaping up, which we've developed with assistance of various AI policy-driven modules, and now we require the input of all the experts across the industry to refine that so that we can present that to government. So now, just with that being said, I'm just going to go further through how we can do that. We've now said, okay, we want to take cannabis off the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. Now, secondly, and this is probably one of the most important ones, when Marijuana Board of South Africa had their meeting with DTIC on Saturday, which was also highly successful, they clearly had the approach of treating cannabis as a pharmaceutical through Section 22. Now, the big thing is the fact that cannabis is treated as a Schedule 6 pharmaceutical substance is completely outdated and irrelevant. It's completely unpractical, because that creates a block for the entire industry. If you look, we've also compiled a document of cited research, and as what we want to do is base this on evidence-backed research, so that we can prove that cannabis shouldn't be treated as a harmful substance. So we suggest perhaps moving it from Schedule 6 maybe to Schedule 3 or 0, or completely remove it from the Medicines Act. Because that just makes regulations much easier for us. And then with that, perhaps we can introduce a new cannabis regulations and economic inclusions bill, which can define all these parameters for our marginalized communities and for all these thousands of outlets operating in a gray zone to become legal and to formally operate. And the great news is, it doesn't have to be only Section 22 or only private clubs. We've got a blueprint for all of these players to coexist, and with that include a mechanism to uplift our indigenous communities and include them in the entire value chain. So just to get back to the regional processing hub, because that plays an integral part. First of all, we cannot do any of this until our laws are correct. So for the regional processing hub to exist, we need to amend these policies so that we can have a proper legal framework. But the regional hubs can now connect the rural grower with these outlets. If we look at these outlets as distribution points, the rural grower doesn't have to go into town to sell his cannabis. He can go to a regional processing hub, which can then, send out a compliance officer to do an inspection on his grow. And then if he doesn't comply, then they can provide him with the necessary support to get him online. And then from there, he can acquire a contract from the club. From the hub. So the hub provides him with a cultivation contract, and this grower can now legally grow cannabis at his house to supply to the hub. The hub then accepts it and processes it and tests and analyzes it, gives it a certificate of accreditation or certificate of analysis, and onboards it onto a system which is regulated and can then be distributed through these cannabis social clubs or dispensaries. That is a practical model that can really work. But the only way we can do that is if we stop treating cannabis as a medicine. just to put it into perspective, if you now take a Schedule 6 medicine, if you get prescribed a Schedule 6 medicine, you don't go to a pop-up dispensary or to a pop-up shop, you go to a pharmacy. So if we want to treat the commercial sector in that way, then those regulations should be in place. I'm sure all the outlets out there don't want that, because that implies very strict regulations. But we can also go the other way, and if we work towards descheduling it from the Medicines Act, then perhaps we can unlock that, and dispensaries can. Why don't we, the licensed facilities, can't we create an avenue for them to distribute through those dispensaries? And that becomes the commercial model, where you can now create an offtake for the licensed facilities which are struggling with offtake. But at the same time, we need that to not marginalize already very, very marginalized community. And we also don't want the clubs to stop existing, because they play an integral role if you look at the dual approach like Germany. So if you look at, we talk about commercialization, and that's what DTIC is looking at now. It's great. We look at medicinal cannabis, that's fine. But what about the people that aren't sick or don't want to go to a doctor? We've now at the moment got our right to privately possess, consume and cultivate cannabis, but it's technically impossible to access that right if there's no legal source of cannabis. So therefore, it is really imperative that cannabis social clubs play their role in the industry, and they have their space as well. These can serve as non-commercial entities that, they are like community centers where people can come together collectively and cultivate cannabis. They serve as harm reduction sites and as educational centers where before people, people that aren't educated on cannabis, they can visit these clubs and they can engage with established cannabis communities. And, these clubs already, many of them have a history of engaging with our indigenous communities and engaging in community upliftment programs. So the drive is already there. Perhaps what we can do, the thing that we've realized is these clubs operating on private adult use, DTIC doesn't really understand the legal rationale behind the how it fits with our constitutional framework that is based on the constitutional rights to privacy and the freedom of association. So when these clubs do not intend to operate as criminal organizations. So members want to access cannabis, and when they do that, they can come together collectively, and we all grow our plants within a type of a stockfell model. So essentially, we all own the plants together, and we pull our resources together. And when you make a withdrawal from that stockfell, if you take any plants from that stockfell, then you can make a financial contribution towards that, as long as it can be defined within its constitution that there are no profits made. And if there are profits made, that it goes towards community development. So in a nutshell, I don't want to just ramble on, because I don't have a specific written speech here. I don't want it also to be too informal. I just want to really get the idea across of how we can really get a proper cannabis industry going. I think the main thing here, the main key takeaway is here, we cannot exclude our indigenous communities that have always carried this plant for us. And, the only way we can really do that is if we stop focusing just on medicinal and we stop focusing just on hemp. Let's start looking at dacha, at cannabis the plant that our people know and are already working with. The entire market already exists. So we just need to all work together to shape the regulations and the policies. And with that, we've also, I just want to look at the program. I think we've got some...
Before you carry on, Bertie,
yes.
We have had Nongo waiting for a while to make a comment. Can we take a couple of comments now? First Nongo, then we'll come to Pumla. Nongo, the floor is yours. Hello, Nongo Dunake, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I think technology went haywire on me. I was not raising my hand.
Okay, not to worry then. Pumla, did you have a comment? Pumla Mabizela?
Thank you very much. I was there, Albertus, on Saturday. So I think one of the things that we all in this maybe are agreeing on is that there's a difference between our recreational type of cannabis and the medicinal, which is your Section 22. And I can also understand from a governmental perspective to say their focus is on safety. And of course, now they are being fed the notion that cannabis is a first line drug introduction to all other drugs. So I think I'm going to repeat what I had said, which is wrong of their understanding. Yesterday with I had an engagement with DTIC. What I tried to also elaborate on was Section 22 drugs or cannabis that is grown from a Section 22 has, of course, high potency, but that indigenous landrace cannabis has a different THC as well. So you can't then say an umbrella and say cannabis is a drug that is similar to the Section 22. So one of the things that as a company we try to do is to say, let us look at the THC content of all these cannabis, and let us now begin to show you whether it be Delta 9, Delta 8, and all other tracings that are in the different cannabis within the whole ecosystem. And I mean, I've even had to say, I will draw to you the different types of cannabis, and then you will be able to see that the one that people indigenously were consuming is different from the one that the medicinal Section 22 are trying to look at. Now, if you begin to say the only way for people to access cannabis is through a prescription, I posed even yesterday to Tiduso to say, are you expecting doctors to prescribe and say, I'm prescribing 2 joints, 1 a day? What is the expectation? Because that other angle is for doctors. It has nothing to do with me, who is maybe just enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it, or me exercising my cultural and traditional right. You understand? So, but what would help us is, I've always said, let's stop talking and let's put on the table the scientific evidence. It's unfortunate that government is not coming to the party, because now private sector is beginning to put science to the table where it was supposed to have been government to begin with. We are working on genetics of cultivars. We are working on strains. We are putting together lab results. We are positioning and saying Section 22 is doing this, this one is doing that. But I also do understand that our Section 22 guys are also not doing a great job in our narrative, because all these high-strained international cultivars are the ones that are proving to government how dangerous it is. So now we are caught between ourselves as an industry to say, when I don't put it there in the dispensary because this thing has high THCs above 21. And then at this same time, we are saying something else. But I think as an industry, we need to come together and agree. Anything above 21 should not be sold at dispensary level, because that's where government catches us on. When they get those cultivars and they test them, they then say, yeah, you see, this thing is a drug now. But if we can then prove to say, these are the land races, these are their THCs, these are their genetics, these are their traits, this is how they act. I mean, we are even going as far as to say, if your bloodline is O-type, what will that mean if you take this? But now doing medicinal, we are trying to prove science to our very own government. But all I'm saying is, for us to win, we need to be able to say anything that is above this, maybe yes, it needs a pharmacist. But at dispensary level, we don't have pharmacy assistants. So there's no doctor who's going to prescribe 3 joints or 1 joint or whatever. But we want the freedom for us to be able to enjoy what we enjoy. We want the freedom for us to be able to cultivate. We want the freedom for us to be able to have dispensaries, because it is really a business wing that has a lot of potential. But then we need to separate. The doctors, let them stay as doctors. The pharmacists, let them stay as pharmacists. As cultivators, farmers, people that are trying to enjoy the plant, we will stay as that, and let us be regulated. Even if there is a new license, which really it needs a new license, because we don't have a regulator currently. But let us come together and see.
Thank you very much, Pumla. That's some very interesting thoughts you raised there. Let's try and keep our comments short so we can get on with the program. Amy, you next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this meeting and opportunity. Thank you to John and Pinky for being here. There's so much that could be said in all of this. And I think ultimately, whether it's hubs, processing, those kinds of things, clubs, dispensaries, shops, the reality is that we were afforded the constitutional right to consume cannabis. But we've been given no legal route to access said constitutional right. Not everybody can grow their own. Some people work 12 hours a day. Some people live on the 17th floor of a building. Some people live in old mine dumps with contaminated soils. I mean, there's numerous and many ways why people cannot access or grow their own cannabis. So ultimately, our adult use market is the biggest market, and there is a need for us to open that up so that we don't or are not forced to break the law. And that is what's happening right now. When it comes to mentioning earlier the police and the arrests, just as an update, Fields of Green for All has been and is working tirelessly on our police reform project. And that is in conjunction with Simon Howell, who is an expert criminologist, the University of Cape Town and the University of Bristol. Whilst we can try and stop arrests, we need to ultimately change the way that police do their jobs in this country. So we are trying to go within and try and change things like KPIs, because we all know on Thursdays arrests go up and our cannabis community are arrested and sat in cells for the weekend and then ushered out the back door of courts on a Monday morning. So we're trying to address things from that way and just a whole new other angle, just so that you guys can be updated with that. And then with all of this said, I mean, ultimately we need to change the law. We need to open up trade. In a country with over 600 years of cultural and traditional use, trade has been the backbone of so many things. And until we take cannabis out of the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, everything we do, including the DTIC's commercialization stuff, is futile. Like, ultimately, we need the presidency to promulgate the act, give us some sort of regulation, and then we can start addressing the problems there. And then just one last little other comment regarding the single conventions and the UN treaties and stuff like that. It is a very complex thing. I will put a comment or a link in the chat just to kind of explain conventions and those kinds of things a bit more. But ultimately, a country's constitution overrides the UN conventions. The government keeps bringing up things like the INCB. Ultimately, they are a watchdog. They do monitor and help implementation of conventions. But in all the countries that have legalized cannabis, nothing has happened to them. At the most, you will, maybe be named and shamed by the INCB, but there is no actual bad things happening to people or countries that are legalizing cannabis and the trade of cannabis. Thank you
very much. That's Amy from Fields of Green for All. I'm coming to you in a moment, Walter, but first to Is it UJNPO? I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. Unjpo, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Greetings, sir.
Yes, go for it. Keep your comments as short as possible, please, but make your
Firstly,
point.
let me thank you, all of you, for being here. My name is Rastapelo Kuno. I'm the General Secretary of the Industrial Data Development, and we are, yes, responsible for the IKS sandbox. The DTIC has accepted. Pardon?
Orange.
Yes, so apology, Chair, some people are speaking behind. And
Sorry, can you
we
please
were
mute
saying
yourself?
on the sandbox, the government did accept the IKS sandbox, but did not fund it. So the lack of funding for the IKS sandbox render it useless in a way. So we really wanted to caution the community there to say that's the challenge we have. But in terms of it being accepted, we have made sure that it's accepted for communities. Let all community members join the IKS sandbox. I will leave the link on the comment side. To the Minister of Public Service, our question to you is that, is there a cannabis policy for all public servants in South Africa? Because I speak as a former public servant who got harsh realities on cannabis at the workspace. As you know, that I'm a former lecturer. So I also wanted them to look into that. And then finally is to say, let's take the dialogue to the wards. Let's take it to the communities, and let's identify what we call marijuana accelerated plan, where we identify stakeholders of cannabis in a ward and profile each and every ward to say, in this ward, this is the status of cannabis users and dealers, and let's promote free and fair, responsible user relation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rashi. And we're going to take Walter Pretorius now, then back to Bertie to get us back onto the program. Walter, the floor is yours. And so before you carry on, I encourage everyone to use the chat facility as well to make your views heard. Sorry, Walter.
Hi guys, how are you? Hope you all are well. Sorry, I'm just moving into a space where there's less noise in my club. I am seeing a lot of diversity in the cannabis industry, and we must actually stand together, form together one alliance. I think that's all that I wanted to say. There's a lot of people on here. A lot of people don't know me. I see a lot of hands. Yes, okay. Guys, that's just my 2 cents. We must stop dividing the industry and stand together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. On that positive note, back to you, Albertus, to continue the program. Thanks for your inputs so far, people.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move on to practical implementation. We're a little bit 50 minutes behind. We've asked various of the organizations that have joined SACCA and indicated their participation in the project Indela to just do brief demonstrations of compliance modules and how we can make this work. We've got Chiba Africa here today to just first talk on the education. Like we say, if we want to change the policies, it must be evidence-backed, scientific-backed research. So what we intend to do is, like I've stated on the SACCA website, there's already a document with a list of cited references of existing research papers that are out there, which back the rationale that cannabis shouldn't be treated as a harmful substance. It shouldn't be Schedule 6. And we can also develop, cost-free research tools with today's technology. For example, Google Forms that we can distribute amongst all these club networks, encourage them to have their members fill in forms which basically serve as testimonials, and those can be included as official statements in our final submission to government. But with education, we've got brilliant organizations such as Chiba Africa, which is like the leading educational platform for cannabis in Africa. So if we can utilize on their strengths to train the workforce on the ground, you know, if we can put in basic measures, for example, that you need a basic growers course before you can acquire a license, to ensure that people know all the compliance standards and compliance measures. So with that, I just want to ask if Linda Siboto or Mags is here, and then I'd like to hand over to them.
Hey, Barty, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for the opportunity. I am with Linda at the moment. I'm going to hand over to him, and we'll do a quick thing on Chiba, where we see education and what we've done in the industry in the meantime. Yeah, thank you so much, and over to you, Linda.
Cool. Thanks so much, Max. And also thank you for putting together this platform. And I think it's just amazing to hear in terms of what, you know, work has been done and what people are hoping to achieve out of this. So essentially, yeah, so Chiba Cannabis and Hemp Academy, we've been around for about 6 years, and our main focus is around the training and the education that's needed for this sector. And especially for, you know, the people that are doing the policies, our policymakers, they have to really understand what this plant is about and what its commercial capabilities are. And then also what the legislators also need to understand, what they need to do in order to make, you know, this thing work for us. Essentially, only times that we've experienced people only understanding cannabis for its ability to be smoked as a smokable. But when they come through our campus and then they see, you know, the different actual products that can be derived from it, then it starts creating a whole other different understanding as to what can be made available. From our side, we have looked at the full value chain. So from the medical practitioners, so actual medical doctors, we've also trained them, because during the time that they have gone to medical school, they would never have come across the endocannabinoid system, receptors, THC, you know, and all these other sort of medicinal cannabinoids that actually work towards maintaining the health of their patients. And also how they can reduce the usage of chemotherapy or can remediate chemotherapy through using cannabis. So that is literally something that we offer on our 12-week course, as well as what we've offered to the community. We even a couple of years ago started getting into hempcrete, and we have a hempcrete course which is directed also at in the construction sector, because it's also a sector which people don't understand that actually cannabis also fits into that space. So it's an accredited course with CPD points, etc. And I think in general, you know, our main sort of objective is to get people to understand that there is an industry here. And through the scholars that we've had over the last 6 years, we can definitely say a lot of them have gone out into the sector and have started things, whether or not they may be cannabis related or not. But I think it's around the mindset as to what cannabis can do for our communities and for our people, and also having a holistic understanding that it's all for us. You know, it's all about how we work and synergize with each other in order towards having a better outcomes. And I think one of the things that I think is important to also mention that we have been able to achieve this year is that we now have a higher certificate in cannabis. This is the first high certificate in the continent. There isn't any other country or company in the country on the continent that has this high certificate accreditation. And I think it's really important now to state that higher education is now something that is obtained through cannabis and through our academy. And I think the one last thing I wanted to mention would be around our Jobs Boost program. Maybe Mags, if you want to jump on and just give sort of an unpacking of that. That happened also this year, and I think it's really important for the industry in terms of how we can formalize and create a value chain of employment for our youth.
Yeah. So I mean, the great thing about the Jobs Boost program was that it was something straight out the president's office. It's the president's youth employment initiative, and we were given a grant to train, I think it was 90 students. So we did 3 cohorts of around 30 each. We trained them on the bartender training, but we added a component of wellness and holistic understanding from a business perspective to the class as well, which enable the students to actually, when they're in these dispensaries and in these clubs, it's not just about being bartenders. It's about understanding the business of cannabis. So I mean, that was something that we're really proud of. It shows that we are moving in the right direction, and that there are mechanisms and programs in place to help to spread the word about cannabis. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also just to jump on that and extend it from Max, is that we have a supply chain of individuals who can work in the industry and be formalized, and government was very much upfront in supporting this. And so we can continue to have programs like this, so that now people understand there's a pathway, there's a career pathway to this industry, and that we can open it up for everybody else. I don't know if you want me to say any more, Bertie. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say.
No, that's good. Thank you very much, Linda and Max. We do appreciate you coming today, and thanks for sharing that from Chiba. Sara, I just see a comment there from Chiba.
Appreciate the platform. Thank you, Bertie.
So I just want to provide him an opportunity to give some feedback. Let's just give him a chance there, Chidisa.
Thank you, Albertos. Just to Shiva, please do understand there's also Mkhulue Hemp, who's been doing it since 2020, and he's level 4 certificate is accredited by AgriSeta, and his curriculum is translated into isiZulu so that it makes it easier. So we must also not mislead the industry as that Sachid is the only one that has a curriculum, because of the curriculum also doesn't cater for people who are non-speaking English, because of Mkhulue Hemp has proven it and he's still doing it. I just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
That's sure. Very fair point. Thank you, Chidisa.
So just to align to that, I'm saying not that we're the only ones with accredited content. I'm saying we have the only higher certificate in through the CHE, the Center of Higher Education. That's not to discredit anyone that's out there that's got their own accreditation, but this is the first one of its kind on the continent.
From a higher certificate.
From a higher certificate perspective, just to align to that. But yes, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Then under the practical implementation as well, I also represent the Canna Club, which is one of the only on-site cultivation clubs in South Africa. And with that, we've established in 2018 and established a YouTube channel in 2020, through which we reached out to all the other various social clubs to find out how are they running their clubs, how are they doing it. And with that, we've come across a lot of fantastic networks, and the market has boomed so much that if you mention any names, you would make people feel excluded. So I just want to state that the vision of the South African Cannabis Club Alliance is to be all inclusive. We aim to provide solutions for the non-commercial as well as the commercial, and to find a way how that can coexist, but still by uplifting our indigenous communities. There's a lot of ways that can be facilitated. For example, if you give all of these so-called Section 21 outlets across the country, if you give them a minimum quota of having to, what if you say they have to have one landrace represented in their club, and they have to have 1 or 2 products represented from their local communities as distributed through the hub. From there, you can use these commercial outlets to uplift those growers and distribute their products, make it available, whilst the cannabis social clubs can serve as educational harm reduction centers to provide resources to these growers and identify them, so that we can all coexist together. I don't think that we should cut one of the two out. But with that being said, with all the various clubs we visited, our CEO, Merman, went to Hartbeespoort Dam recently. He linked up with the Joint, which is one of the Grow on Africa clubs. He linked up as well with Yolandi, which is from the Joint Venture Collective. These are lovely, plat op die aarde people. They've also joined various networks such as the Grow on Africa, and I think they were on the High Street Network. And as the industry goes, we all, go have our own interests at heart, and we go separate ways. And she eventually formed her own joint venture collective, developing her own software and compliance models based on the experience that they've got. So Yolandi's joint venture indicated that we've got their full support for the regional hub IKA Sandbox project, and they are one of the service providers that can assist us with software solutions and compliance measures. So she's now put together a little plan to showcase how a regional hub can practically function. And I just want to hand over to Yolandi. Want to just see if she's here present with us.
Hi, Barting. How are you?
Thanks, Yolandi.
Good. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very nervous, so if I do stutter, please pardon. But I'm going to switch over to the presentation that I've prepared. This is just a short overview of how we at Joint Venture and our software provider, which is Lipia, see that how we envision this hub. So I'm going to start quickly by telling you my name is Yolandi, and I represent Joint Venture Collective. We're a network of cannabis clubs, growers, and processors. We're working together to create a transparent, compliant model for the South African cannabis industry. Today, I want to take you through our representation of how we envision Project Indela and how the Lipia system is being developed to support the establishment of regional multidisciplinary hubs all under the Indigenous Knowledge Sandbox framework. Okay, let me just get to my next slide. There you go. So we've started with the problem. Across South Africa, thousands of community growers and cannabis social clubs are already operating, as we all know. The activity exists, but the structure does not. Growers record harvests in notebooks, processors move product manually, and clubs track members with spreadsheets. There's no unified record, there's no verified data, and there's no clear compliance pathway. This leaves communities vulnerable, and the government without a way to recognize or regulate our sector lawfully. So our vision is that Project Indela was designed to change that. By formalizing the community model into a lawful structured framework, the vision is to simply create regional processing hubs that connect community growers and cannabis social clubs through verified transparent systems. Each hub provides testing, processing, packaging, and lawful distribution, creating jobs and generating revenue while maintaining health, safety, and harm reduction standards. So we see Lipia as the support to that framework that we developed. We're a digital compliance and traceability system that is designed for South Africa's cannabis economy. Lipia connects with every stakeholder. We've got growers, processors, and clubs. Each module records activity, tracks product movement, and generates a digital audit trail that can be verified in real time. These modules are already functional, and they are being used within the Joint Venture Collective private club model. We are now developing the final piece, which is the hub system that I'm going to tell you about. And this part brings everything together, and it creates one unified natural compliance ecosystem. We need to start with the traceability. Let's start with what already exists. So we've already got the grower and processor modules that makes every step traceable from cultivation to packaging. Growers register their plants in the system. It generates tracking codes for tagging. Growers can then upload their harvest weights and photos through various stages of the growing process. And when the product moves from the processor or hub, it is scanned, logged, and linked to its testing and packaging data. Each batch has a verified chain of custody, which means that we can trace any product from soil to session with full transparency. The club system, the club modules, this completes the whole traceability chain. It links verified products directly to its members. Only hub-approved batches are received by clubs, and member allocations and reimbursements are digitally logged, and automated reports can be generated for audits and inspections. To ensure that every gram is shared within a club is traceable, tested, and compliant, closing the loop between cultivation, processing, and responsible adult use, which is great. So this next slide, you'll see this is our vision of how we see a hub working. Okay, the hub system, this hub will act as both a physical facility and a digital compliance center. It's the operational heart of the lawful community of cannabis. How it works is the next. Let me show you this one. Okay. We're going to go through some 5 points that we see the hub working as. First, it's going to be responsible for receiving and verification. The hub will receive all product from registered growers. Each batch is scanned into the Leap Year hub interface, and the intake form auto-populates using grower data from the system. It moves over to testing and quality control, where samples will be sent for lab testing. Your hub will have a lab and testers on site, and it is uploaded directly into the digital record, and only compliant batches then will move forward. Processing and packaging comes next. Approved product is then processed and dried and packaged under standard operating procedures with QR codes linked onto the packaging for traceability. For storage and distribution, verified stock is stored securely until it's dispatched, and it's also accompanied by a digital delivery note and a chain of custody record. So all this will be formulated by the system automatically. You're just going to click it. It's going to be auto-populated, and then you can say you can transport it to your club or wherever. Digital oversight and reporting, and like I said, the system automatically generates compliance, and it can generate municipal reports, giving the DTIC and the SAPS and even the health department access to live audit-ready data. So that functionality is built in there. In essence, the hub is where the physical compliance meets the digital verification, bringing the structure, the safety, and the visibility to a sector that already exists, but it needs lawful grounding. Integrating the hub's operational plan follows the hub SOPs that have been developed under Project Indela. I'm sure if you log onto the website, you can go and have a look at the hub SOPs and how this will work. So Leap Year doesn't replace the SOPs, we just digitize them. Every step from intake, testing, processing, curing, packaging, and dispatch is all logged in real time. It reduces the paperwork, of course, and enhances the accountability. It gives inspectors and municipal authorities the transparency that they've been asking for. Since I joined the cannabis community 5-6 years ago, the one thing we all spoke about and the one thing we're passionate about is transparency. We don't want to put away and work under a rock. We're transparent. We want to create a cannabis industry. Okay. Next one, what is the value for stakeholders? What is the value for guys joining this model and this project? For the growers, it's going to be a secure and lawful way to distribute your product. For processors, it simplifies batch management and compliance, and the hub will also offer packaging and processing services. For clubs, it guarantees that the product integrity and member safety is intact. It provides them with a full point of sale as well, and a member management system. And for the government, of course, it provides them with transparent data, and it proves the viability of our community model. For the industry as a whole, and that's everybody that's on this call today, it evens out the playing field and it creates fair trade. We can't keep hitting each other with prices and this is not fair and that is not fair. We need to come together and create a fair trade space. Where we are at the moment, so here we are now. We've got our grower and our processor and our club systems, and they are already functional. The hub system is currently being developed, aligned with the SACCA's national framework and, of course, the IKS sandbox model. Everything will be built into the software that runs the hub. Our next steps are to complete the hub prototype, train some operators, conduct a full traceability test, linking the growers, the hubs, and the clubs, and just to show you guys how we envision this and how this needs to work. Okay. In closing, to close this proposal, this isn't a dream, guys. It's practical, a working plan. It's built from the ground up by people already shaping the industry. Leap Year provides the digital structure, the hub model provides the operational framework, and together they form a transparent, inclusive solution that protects communities, it supports regulations, and it unlocks the South Africa's cannabis future. We're built in Africa for Africa's cannabis future. We're willing to align with everybody who's willing to come to the table, put the past behind everybody, and let's just move on and create an industry. We've got this opportunity now to create this industry and to set the rules and to have your input. Join SACCA and let's get this done. Thank you guys for the opportunity to be here and to represent what we have, and hopefully we can take this more into the future, and more discussions and more meetings will come out of this, and we can get to a point where trading in cannabis is fair and legal. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. Chisisa, I see you've got your hand up there. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes. Thank you very much for the presentation, but I still see it's still exclusionist. How is it that the original Snyman is not in the value chain of the Indela? As we know that the original Snyman is the one who's been suffering for all the years before the clubs were even established. So I think I'm a bit disappointed with the model where the indigenous people are only placed in the first part of the link, which is just them cultivating or their land being used, but they are not anywhere within the value chain. For instance, like I'm saying, the original Snyman, there's nothing about the original Snyman in your value chain. So it's exclusionist. And colleague, I'd like to remind you about the Pt.1 Act, where we have in South Africa that we cannot exclude people because of their financial status or their race or religion or sexual orientation. So I think you must be very careful about this one. In my end, I'm quite disappointed that it has nothing to do about the original Snyman, who's been the person fighting this emancipation of cannabis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Chadisha. That's an extremely valid point. And I've seen one or two people address it in the comments as well. So I just want to paint the picture clear. The clubs that exist out there, we are aware that they are disrupting the value chain for the indigenous communities. So what we aim to do through a proposal like a regional hub is to rectify that. So for these growers, rural growers don't always have the space to open up their own clubs. For that, I'm sure there's some organizations working on a spaza shop model, but we want to create a legal entry point and a legal access point for these rural growers to distribute their clubs through non-commercial clubs as well as commercial clubs. You must remember, non-commercial clubs represent a minority of the various outlets out there. So non-commercial clubs serve more as an entry point for these indigenous community or marginalized growers, or the original Snyman as you refer it to, where they can now approach the club and say, okay, we've got growers within our community. Can you please assist us to create offtake for our product, legal offtake without the police harassing us? So then the hub can do an inspection through a regulatory body, such as Mbosa with the IKS sandbox, where they charge a small fee to come inspect your site. If the grower is then approved, they get onboarded onto the hub, and they can provide according to their cultivation contract to make their produce available to any club nationwide. So if rural growers want to participate and have their products in the clubs, what we propose is a sort of a minimum quota, where, as I mentioned earlier, where it is a legal obligation for these clubs to ensure that they have a minimum amount of those products represented within their clubs. So that is our plan, to include the original Snyman. The reality is, as I mentioned on Saturday's meeting as well, a majority of these outlets, and with all due respect, are primarily owned by middle-aged whiteys. So, we need to ensure that we can create mechanisms to pull in the indigenous growers. And yeah, that is the rationale behind the regional hub. I don't know if you want to just provide feedback on that, Chadiso, and whether that makes sense for you, and then we can move on to the next presentation.
I think if I could just quickly
doesn't
here,
make
before you speak,
Sorry, can we just get Chadiso there?
Can I respond, Brett?
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense because it still sounds like you are still placing the previously disadvantaged in one value chain, and yet it is the club's discretion who are they going to work with. So I think as an industry we must forget this apartheid attitude that we have. We are facing it with the government, and we can't face it as an industry too, because of even here, how many other are those indigenous people are represented in this dialogue, So we must be very careful. We must be very careful that we must not build exclusionist systems because of we want to advance our own interest in the industry. It's all our industry. So I think you must review Indela and find ways of how the original Snyman can take part and have his fair share in that value chain. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bertus. Before you continue, I think these are hugely important points that need to be addressed, and I think it's worth reflecting that Project Indela is not a destination but a journey, and these things need to be incorporated in the way going forward. But Bertus, I've just wanted to raise the point that we are running out of time, and the rest of the program, I think we need to factor in any government representatives to have their say before we bump up against 2 o'clock. So can I leave it to you to juggle the program accordingly?
Okay, 100%. We've just got a final one from Afrimeter as well. If I can just ask if Cobus is here. Afrimeter.
I'm here, Bertie. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here. Let me just grab this one. If you guys allow me 5 minutes and to share my screen. Just want to check if the screen is visible. Bertie, can you just confirm there if you can see my screen?
Yes, we did.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. My name is Cobus Skuman. I'm from Grow On Africa. If you allow me this 5 minutes, I want to give you a look into the last 5 years of one of South Africa's oldest and most well-established networks of private member cannabis clubs. We opened our first club in 2018, and since 2020, we've moved through several generations of systems, from spreadsheets to our portal, the Atmos, and now to Go Light, a fully operational C2Share compliance platform. It's not a concept or a beta test. It's the proudly indigenous South African system that we use every day to run real clubs in real communities across the country. As of this month, 16 clubs, 10 primary and 6 satellites are operating on Goa Light with more than 6,000 active members, 39,000 cultivation records and 33,000 legacy member records successfully migrated. Goa Light has been live for cultivators since April 2024, for clubs since April 2025, and for members since September 2025. This is the country's most tested and most transparent cannabis compliance network. Every plant, every batch, every gram in our system is traceable, from cultivation and lab testing all the way to member sharing stations. Goa Light automates month-end financials. It creates invoices, calculates pay-as-you-earn and UIF through simple pay integration, and issues payslips to cultivators. Because each club is registered MPC, members' reimbursements remain in trust until the system releases payments. There's no cash flow misuse. Everything is transparent and auditable. Our AI forecasting engine segments members into 5 behavioral tiers and predicts consumption for the next 52 weeks with around 85 to 88% accuracy at this point. That means cultivators know what to plant, clubs know what to expect, and the entire supply chain runs on real data, no guesswork. Like a friend says, because in God we trust, but the rest must bring data. The system works anywhere. Goa Light is mobile first, and its offline cultivation and point of share modules roll out early next year. It's ideal for rural and legacy growers who need reliable tools, even with limited connectivity. Goa Light's structure formalizes the entire ecosystem. The members contribute a small monthly fee from 10 Rand, and in return get a personal dashboard, digital membership card, and access to their sharing station and club events across the network online. Clubs subscribe from about 5,000 to 8,000 Rand a month, gaining member management, POS tools, reporting, zero integration, full support for pop-up or satellite operations, and the option of WhatsApp communication. Cultivators and processors, or CPMs, pay between 50 and 500 Rand a month, depending on size, with access to batch creation, lab testing, reimbursements, and full traceability. Together, these subscriptions form a working cooperative economy, every participant registered, every transaction traceable, and every role clearly defined within the compliance chain. Goa's model is a closed-loop system. Clubs operate as non-profits and act as custodians, not sellers. Funds flow from members to MPC and then to cultivators through Goa Light, creating a verifiable audit trail. Access is role-based. Data is securely partitioned, and oversight can be engaged when needed. Goa Light already meets about 95% of Project Indela's requirements, and the remaining upgrades, including Cannabis Regulatory Authority, inspector access, and excise tax automation, will go live in early 2026. Because of Goa Light's success and the growing need for business management tools that serve the wider cannabis value chain, we've launched the next phase, AfriMeter. AfriMeter expands on the Goa Light architecture. Its first module is already being used by WeWork Hemp to collect information from producers, processors, off-takers, and investors, helping formalize the industrial hemp and cannabis sector from the ground up. We believe AfriMeter can also become the shared data platform that helps SACCA and others to gather accurate, standardized information from clubs, cultivators, and members, especially those in non-commercial private clubs where supply follows demand and access to cannabis remains strictly limited to verified members. We warmly invite such clubs to engage with us before year end to start sharing verified member and cultivator records securely. Let's build Indlela together. This proactive collaboration will make SACCA's formalization and that of the sandbox projects far easier and give oversight bodies like Mbosa, SACCA, DTIC, and others access to real-time dashboards for inspection and policy making. Together, we can demonstrate that South Africa's non-commercial cannabis clubs are ready, compliant, transparent, community-driven, and ready to pave the way to full commercialization. If we define regulated non-commercial cannabis now, then we should have the roadmap for commercial cannabis. Light has proven it works. Afrimeter is our next step, the tool that unites us all and the systems we have built. It formalizes us and prepares us for national regulation. Join our club today. We are Grow on Africa, where we grow the people, nurture the earth, with Africa leading the way. Thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cobus. Yeah, massive respect and applaud to Grow on Africa, the entire network, and all the people involved there for putting in years of efforts to develop compliance systems, because we need that. If we want to apply regulations, we need systems to facilitate that. And yeah, with that, Brett, I want to just hand over to you so that we can just check in with our government officials and provide the last bit of time for feedback. And we also just want to say we're happy to extend beyond the 2 p.m. for the people that do want to stay. Originally, the meeting was intended, scheduled for 4 hours. So we've completely condensed our program, but we're happy to participate further in the discussion. If we can just give an opportunity to our government officials.
Yes. Thank you, Albertus, and thanks to everybody for their presentations to date. John Jeffrey from TIPS, are you available still? Would you like to reflect on what you've heard so far? John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Brett. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm no longer a government representative, but I'm not quite sure what I'm working with government, but it's also difficult having been in government, getting used to being outside.
Right.
Sorry. No, let me just do some responses. The first is the legal situation, and that is quite complicated. Brett, you must just cut me if I'm getting too long. I wanted to cover the legal situation, stakeholder involvement, or legal situation, legal reform, and then stakeholder involvement in the master plan. So those are the 3 areas I wanted to cover. But basically, the legal situation is, well, the Prince judgment decriminalized cannabis for consumption for private use, no amount set, and they also decriminalized growing and for private use and possession. And I don't think they actually talked about transportation, but that's basically seen as being there too. Before that, there was provision under the Plant Improvement Act of 1976 for permits to grow hemp, which was defined as 0.2% or less THC. And there was provision in the Medicines and Related Substance Act to get licenses which are administered by SACCA, the Health Products Regulatory Authority, to grow and produce cannabis for medical purposes. With both the Plant Improvement Act and the Medicines Act, actually there's no mention in those acts of cannabis or hemp or THC. Basically, government used the regulations to provide for it. And in the Medicines Act, I think the term under Section 22C is manufacturing, I think it is. And government then has interpreted that to include growing. So government has tried to go a bit wider to allow things to happen. Anyway, so that's the so the existing. Oh, and the Concord also in Prince refused to decriminalize the selling of cannabis. So that was specifically they were not in favor of. At that point, so it's not as if they said it should happen, but obviously it can happen and it really must happen. But it's not there officially or legally as yet. When the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act comes into effect, there will be some changes. So one is that cannabis will be removed from the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. It will no longer be in that act. And so it's been done already legally. It's just waiting for the Private Purposes Act to come into effect. That's basically one. Two, it defines cannabis as the flowering or fruiting tops. So every other part of the plant, the seeds, the roots, the stems, the leaves, are not cannabis in terms of the Act. They're excluded from the Act and the Act's restrictions, which means I would say that there's no restrictions on them. You can do what you want with them, buy them, sell them, whatever. The restriction in the Act is that you cannot trade in cannabis. I can't now remember offhand the actual wording. Unless allowed for in terms of the Private Purposes Act, which I don't think has any provision for that, or in terms of any other national law. And in a sense, the one of those national laws is the Medicines Act, because that does allow for the Section 21 prescriptions and so on. What we so that's that side. The delay has been the minister has to come out with regulations setting the amounts. So I've seen on the chat there's been a debate around amounts. There are no amounts at the moment. There are no amounts at the moment. It's basically the problems the police would have is that it would be you'd have to justify or you'd have to prove that it's not for private use. Unfortunately, when Parliament was processing the Act, the NPA and the police told the Department of Justice that they needed to have amounts, otherwise it would be impossible to enforce. And Parliament and the Ministry of Justice listened to them. And because it wasn't possible to find a rational basis for setting amounts to put in the Act, and there was pressure to pass the Act before the end of term, it was kicked over to the minister to make regulations setting amounts. And it's been taken a bit longer. It's taken a bit longer because there's got to be a rational basis. And if you look at internationally, the amounts set, they're not particularly rational. But it should be finalized soon. Then the intention from the Minister of Justice is to put out the regulations for comment. And then they've got to be approved by Parliament, and then they can be published, and then the Act can come into effect. So now we're looking at, unfortunately, I was hoping it would be earlier, but it would be next year, the first part of next year, that happening. But just to remind everybody that this Act is about private usage for private purposes. So, the amounts are not going to be too large. It's a different Act or it's dealing with different things than what I think people here would like to see. So that's that Act. The new Plant Improvement Act of 2018 was meant to come into effect on the 1st of September. And they couldn't bring it into effect in time, so it's now 1st of December. And that will, once that comes into effect, or from the 1st of December, the level hemp is defined as cannabis sativa L of 2% THC or less. That's how they've defined it. And that's what people will be able to grow hemp with those permits. The intention, I understand, from Department of Agriculture is that once the Private Purposes Act comes into effect, and cannabis is out of the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, then the Minister of Agriculture will declare cannabis as a crop in terms of the Plant Improvement Act. Sorry if I'm sounding too technical. And agriculture will also issue permits for cannabis that is over 2% THC. So that's what will be coming in. We are looking at in terms of, as part of the master plan, dealing with the regulatory issues with a two-prong approach. Well, it's actually three. The first is basically getting those two laws into effect. But then the other two prongs are, well, the last prong is a overarching omnibus cannabis bill that will be introduced by the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, which will deal with all aspects of cannabis, take over from all these other acts. Obviously, it's sort of new law in South Africa, and even in other countries who are a lot further than us, they're also only experimenting or seeing how things work. So it will take some time. There's a very good likelihood of some kind of regulatory authority body in that overarching bill. But that bill will take longer because it's a lot more complicated, a couple of years. So what we are wanting to do, let me not respond to the messages that I see that are a bit provocative, but I will. What we're wanting to do is to look at short-term amendments to the existing laws. So the one is, can we find a national law that can allow the licensing of outlets selling cannabis? And what we have proposed to Department of Small Business, that they look at, can't they amend that act and provide for cannabis businesses. So that's something being looked at. There would be other laws as well that we would be trying to do. We are engaging with the police on the issue of enforcement. I'd had a meeting with the Minister of Police. He asked me to do a memorandum for him on it. But because there's a lot that's not legal. However, the issue would be, yes, you would have seen that those instructions that came out in 2023, basically saying that there needed to be consultation with the prosecutors before there were arrests. What we are looking at, and I'd worked with, what we're looking at is similarly, whilst this general agreement on decriminalizing, can't they sort of go easy on people consuming cannabis and even selling it? So that would be the issue to look at. We still need to then hear his response and have further engagements. There is a problem of different views within government, possibly amongst ministers, which you may be able to see from the outside, and also then with officials about the dangers of cannabis. So there are different levels of understanding on the issue, and there does need to be education that takes place. There does need to be education that takes place of those officials. So that's roughly the framework. You would have seen the letter probably that General Nhlanhla Khumalo sent out with a legal opinion on KZN. Which was that none of the outlets are legal. I have to say, whilst there were inaccuracies in the letter, I would tend to agree with him. but I would not be urging the police to start enforcing the law. I mean, maybe to do some monitoring of the outlets, but really, if people are not causing harm, what's the point of dealing with them? And then I think people here on the chat, I've seen issues of complaints of police corruption, which is obviously an issue that one needs to be concerned about and watch out for. Let me just say, just in terms of some of the comments. So basically, the way I would see it is that you've got a legal framework that is quite limited, a bit irrational in terms of the points already been raised. If you can't buy it, then where are you meant to get it from? That's incidentally the position in many other countries. In the process, we in the process we've got to, though, be mindful of the international treaty situation. And to keep an eye on that. So I'm not entirely in agreement with, I think it's Amy, about no, we can just, I don't know if you were saying ignore them, but we need to keep an eye on that. Yes, other countries have gone further than we have and they've been okay, but we have to watch our backs literally. Just in terms of the comments, there's quite a lot of them. The 21 dispensaries, and Kekiso, I hope you can get hold of me afterwards, because I was interested in some of your comments about it. But I think there's a lot of abuse going on there in terms of people pretending that or putting up SACCA licenses, which SACCA say they're not issuing. So I do think that's an issue that people need to be more cautious of. The SACCA licenses are not for export only, there's no law saying they're for export only, but as far as I understand, the Section 22C licenses are mainly for export, basically. But that is because there's nobody who can produce cannabis for medical purposes in South Africa. But it's not a legal thing, so it can be changed. We are also engaging with SAPRA. The beans issues of consultation, people complaining of no consultation. Government is committed to consultation. I'm personally committed to consultation. So before the regulations come out in terms of the Private Purposes Act, they will be published for public input. There's been some problems or some complaints, Brett, on your newsletter regarding the commercialization policy. But the issue there is that DTIC has come up with a draft commercialization policy. They want to put it out for public comment. They needed to consult internally to ensure that when it went to cabinet that everybody was on the same page. And I think that it might have gone a little bit further than entirely internally, which internally would be government, but it's going to be published for public comment. It's not an issue that it is going to be sort of rushed through. If there's a process, the process for the overarching bill will need to involve the public. Any amendments will need to involve the public. So that's really the regulatory issue and where we're going.
John, if I could just butt in there, thank you very much for your candidness. And I think what's very refreshing for all of us to hear is somebody who's aligned with the DTIC. I know you with TIPS, but acknowledging the existence of something of the so-called grey zone, and that something has has to be done. That's one of the problems, and where the criticism has come from Cannabis Africa, is that there hasn't been really, well, the focus has been on medicinal cannabis exports and the development of industrial cannabis or hemp. And it's reassuring to hear that you are very open and committed to consultation, and that that the DTIC is starting to look at the situation that we have, the reality around us. So thank you for that. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Carry on. We all ears.
No, that's fine. I'll try, and I've been gone longer than I expected. Just to say, in terms of participation from stakeholders in the master plan, we want to facilitate as much participation as possible, but the industry or the sector is not particularly, because it's only just emerging from illegality and is still, parts of it are still in illegality. It's not particularly well structured, such as other industries that have master plans. What we've done is we have tried to group non-government stakeholders into what we would call sector. We want to maximize participation, and we don't want gatekeepers who are controlling access. So what we've done is we're trying to set up sectors of interest. So, for example, the hemp growers would presumably, they might not have the same opinions, but they would presumably have the same concerns, which would relate to growing seed supply, that kind of thing. The cannabis growers, the Section 21, 22C licenses would presumably all have some kind of similar interests and could be grouped together. The issue of traditional growers would have similarly common interests. So the idea is to group people together, then to meet with that sector, because it's spreading the country. It would probably need to be virtually, and then to basically give briefings, get input, and try and encourage that sector of interest to look at some form of representation that we can engage with. So that's the sort of the sort of view in terms of how to engage stakeholders. But we do want to engage with you and hear your inputs, give you issues for comment, those kinds of things. So I think that's largely what the input I wanted to give. Just to say that look, it's quite a big. I've said it's now, well, it's gone down to 119 people. But sorry, Albertus, you wanted to speak?
Sorry, I see several people have raised their hands. Can we just conclude so that we can move?
Okay. Well, okay. Let me leave that for now. Let people comment. Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry to cut you short, Jeffrey. I see Chidisho has got his hand raised there. Chidisho, do you want a chance to speak?
Thank you, Mr. John Jeffrey, and it's good once again to hear the progress that you guys are in. But I'm still taking you back to our second meeting that we had this year with Marijuana Board to say we need an immediate moratorium on arrest, because of, as you can see, there's a whole roadblocks that are happening, and I'm speaking for the traditional growers who are transporting. When is the moratorium on arrest going to happen? Because of, for us to be able to transcend into all those things, we need to have full participation of people. It's December now, people are getting arrested. Today I was going to get picking up ganja because of a lawful arrest. So we just need to know from the DTIC and TIPS, what is their response on the moratorium that Marijuana Board of South Africa has requested and suggested? Thank you.
Albertus, do you want me to answer question by question, or do you want me to take a group of questions?
If you could respond to Chidisho's question, that would be lekker.
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, I've engaged with the Minister of Police. He wanted a memo. I've done that memo. So I'm waiting for him to go through it and come back to me. Some of the things in that memo were that government needs to get onto the same page, so you can't have one minister doing one thing and others doing another. But the issue of a moratorium on arrests is something that was pushed for in that memo. I'm told with the Pakisa issue that, well, there wasn't any moratorium put there. I'm told that I think the NPA weren't happy with it, didn't want a moratorium because they said they can't be precluded from enforcing the law. The points that I've raised is that if you take sex work, it's criminal. You can't buy, you can't sell sex. But basically, society generally and most of the parties in parliament have accepted that sex work should be decriminalized. And the result of that is that nobody's being arrested for buying or selling sex, and nobody's being prosecuted. They are prosecuting and arresting people for human trafficking for sexual purposes, but not just for selling sex. So in a sense, we've already got a precedent. But the issue basically would be what is the point of these arrests of people for minor infringements? If the Rastafari want to consume cannabis and sell small amounts of it, what harm are they causing? There would be those kinds of points. So it's unfortunately not legal to sell cannabis, to transport large amounts, but we are pushing for a moratorium. That is not to say that you must just leave it up to us. It would be good if you can still, as Mbasa, continue lobbying and campaigning for that. I saw somebody on the platform had asked about this Uppington case, which I saw yesterday in a letter that Charles Botha sends out. Unfortunately, he didn't give much details, so I'd be interested in finding out more about that, to find out what had happened. I had asked the NPA what is actually happening with prosecutions, but they told me they don't actually keep statistics of they just keep statistics for offences in terms of the Drugs Act and don't actually list what kind of drug it is. So that wasn't particularly helpful. But yeah, let me leave it like that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, John Jeffrey. Chadisa, I see you still have your hand raised. Would you like to further engage on that topic?
No, thank you. No, thank you. That's quite clear. It's the progress of the law. We'll wait. But however, the people can't go hungry. You know, I will always remind Mr. John Jeffrey that this is a fully active industry, and I will always speak for the poor because of their fighting poverty. So if we do find arrest, Mr. John Jeffrey, during the holidays and the police are putting it all over the news, we must remind the DTIC that we told them that we are unhappy with that decision and their slow school butt pace that they are doing. They need to move quicker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chadiso. I just want to once again highlight to everyone, SACCA is an open platform which encourages participation and collective input from everybody so that we can ensure that all the voices are heard. If there is any resistance, we allow criticism and feedback to enhance our approach so that it aligns with what everyone wants. So with that being said, we will be hosting future webinars, and we encourage people as well to engage with the Marijuana Board of South Africa to get involved in the National Cannabis Dialogue, and to go look at the SACCA forums to look at the documentation that we've put out, and look at our proposal. And if you don't agree or you feel there's anything you want to change, that is why it is an open platform. It's a living document which is intended to be drafted by all of us. So with that being said, the meeting was scheduled for 2 hours. We can continue the conversation over here for everyone that has got the time. So yeah, it is an open schedule. I just want to get back to the point of the differentiation between commercial and non-commercial, and especially the one thing that is being left out. It's being so left out that it was on the program, and we didn't even provide the opportunity within the program for our traditional leaders or our indigenous communities to present it, to listen to the situation from their side. So if we have any representation of our traditional communities, could we please provide some input on our existing situation and some feedback on how on SACCA's vision here? Does it align with what you want from upcoming policies, or is there any other way that you see it? See John Jeffries has a hand raised there.
Yeah, just to quickly finish off, if you don't mind, Albertus, because I think you're moving on to everybody else. I'm posting my contact number and my email address on the chat. Please don't call me. I can't take all the calls. But please WhatsApp me or preferably email me if you've got issues you want to raise. Yeah, it's something when I was in a previous more demanding job I actually used to do, and nobody actually abused it. So please to appeal to everybody not to abuse it. So I'm posting it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And I must applaud you for what feels like a completely new approach that's coming through the DTIC, and a reassurance on consultation and a willingness to engage and an openness. And, you know, I'd also like to say Cannabis Africa is open as a channel of communication for anything that you want to get out to the industry. Please feel free to contact me likewise. But back to you, Albertus, and thanks once again, John. We really appreciate your time and your input.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah, we can wrap it up. I want to just open the platform for any other participants in this discussion. If there are any other points that you want to raise, beyond that, we will be arranging future meetings based on our conversation today. If there's anything we missed out or key areas we need to identify that we need to further elaborate on, so that we can arrange the appropriate meetings to discuss that and iron out all the issues. Okay, I've got a hand there from Madoda and Magoshi. Magoshi had a hand raised way earlier and we missed her. Can I just allow her an opportunity to quickly speak, and then we'll go in chronological order.
Greetings. We give praise to life and life, to give praise to the Most High. What we need to add on, the project, it says Indlela. Indlela, it means a way, and a way, it doesn't choose who uses it. So now, out of the project, the way they entitled it, the traditional leaders, the traditional healers, the Sneemans, community of interest, the minorities, the one that it's been mentioned there. So kindly, and the Rastafarians, we need to add them in this. There is nothing for us without us. If we are not included in each and every model that is coming up, this is not going to work. At the Pakisa, we stated very well when they endorsed the sandbox that we are going to do the IKS Pt.1 sandbox. So it means cannabis is an indigenous crop. So no one has to be left behind. We are tired with the apartheid laws, the 1964, the 1976, please. It's not aligning with us. More especially about the Dachas Plaza shops. We have to use a model that is going to allow even the poor of the poorest that are in this market up to this stage. Cannabis was popular as a business because Neymans were pushing it in the location. We were arrested for the stats of the drugs to go high because they had nothing to do. So now when you bring up anything, any project, kindly so, add traditional healers, traditional leaders, Rastafarians, indigenous people, and the community of interest at large, because these sections, they are not allowing the local economy to thrive in this cannabis. So we want to also add the Dachas Plaza shops using the hawkers model that the municipality is using, so that everybody can be on board in this one, so that we will be able to go. Kindly for the next meeting, let us consider. Ashe.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Magoshi. That is extremely valuable because as we state, that is our intention, is to build a model that is all inclusive. You know, from our side, we can put it how we envision it, but we need the collective input from our traditional leaders. So if there is any exclusion, please do excuse it. It is driven within only my individual capacity at the moment. I'm here in Plettenberg Bay and my circle is very small. We only reach out to our local Rastafari communities and the Naisna Judah Square communities. So we need your assistance to get as much representation from traditional communities so that their voices can be heard and included in the project so that we can shape it around that. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I just want to move on to the next feedback. John Jeffrey, I see you've still got your hand raised. Could we move over to the next participant, or do you want to finish? Okay, cool. Madoda Biyana, could you please unmute yourself? Madoda?
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry I joined the meeting late actually. Just wanted some clarity on some issues perhaps concerning Rastafari churches. Because we do plant a ganja for sacrament reasons. Sometimes we don't plant it in churches because our church spaces are very small. So the issues of transportation then become a problem because some people then get arrested while transporting it. So I'm just trying to find out if there's any perhaps measures that are put in place to try and protect churches in their transportation and possession of large quantities. Thanks. And also that one of the inclusion of Rastafari within all procedures. Please.
Okay. That's a very valid question, Madoda. Transportation is one of the main hurdles preventing the economy from, even if we do now formalize it, we do need legal transportation, especially for people in rural areas. Hence the proposal of a regional hub, if we can have authorized transport where, you know, we've got waybills that carry the necessary permits or licensing to be able to securely and privately transport that cannabis, then it doesn't have to be the worry of the grower anymore. If something like a regional hub can facilitate that process, and it is all authorized. So how it would work in a practical sense is if a grower now has product which he wants to distribute, he can do it on an online platform where he can dispatch his order, and then the courier will come and pick it up safely without you having to worry about any legal issues. So that is the framework that we're proposing. I hope I am presenting it clearly enough and that it answers your question. In terms of regulatory frameworks, you know, that is up to government, and that is what we intend to, you know, to kind of guide them in the way that we see it fit. I just want to move on to the next, Zaino. You've had your hand up for a while. Can I ask you to unmute yourself?
Hi, goeiedag. Kaitses, Tawidis Mire, Kaitsaho, Nanua, Chantansia Botse, Frida, Kaestarama, Ikohoba, met ons naai stakeholder. Dankie Vader wat U ons bewaar het hierdie dag, en bewaar hoe beskerm ons deur die nag. Hy kan dan sien. Hi Dakse, good day everyone. Hukum slope, Sambonani Batubang, Salbona, Bukani, Guani, Ake Bacha, Kaeza, Amase. Here Dakse, I am the Western Cape Umboza, sworn in. I have a team. I am also the Paramount Chief of Blue Downs and the indigenous healer, I Hainakwa. Opposite the N2 River is the Hainakwa, and this side of the N2 River is the Pohokwa. So in the Blue Downs and the Pohokwa region, I am the Paramount, and for the national Khoisans, I do the ceremonies of initiations, Hainakwa, Esakwa, Korekwa, process we have Karala. Then we go in through down Cape to Nama, right down this Karala. So we have, like I say, if all that people together, in speaking in terms of Khoisan, in Ubuntu stand together and not be divided, then we can make a difference. We ourselves here in this group, I see a lot of things pass and it's not going to work because we are all South Africans. We are all in the same problems and we are all fighting the same system. But now we are fighting each other, and while we're fighting each other, we won't ever reach our goals. If you look at ways of how we can fix this, you know that for yourself, cooperatives is equal. It's Ubuntu. The same. If you come together in Ubuntu, we're gonna sponsor you, we're gonna help you, and it's nothing for me to pop up with a 500 rand out of 500 members to buy a license, buy a facility. We must think like that now. We must think in unity. How are we gonna stand together to make our dreams and our families' dreams work? Because at the end of the day, you are also here for the bread on the table. My friend, my tribe, there's a guy that his leg is off, he's growing. He was a construction worker, but now the guns are telling us. You understand what I'm saying? So we can also enrich those people if we stand together. Because now for our communities also, we need to enrich as well and protect. But we can't do it if we're fighting with each other's communities. So if we can stand together, think about models of cooperative, because a cooperative can take over 5,000 members. It can go on the stock exchanges. It says you get the 13th check at the end of the day, and you can link. Blue Downs can link to Baskral. Eastern Cape Kraal can link to this Kraal. This Kraal, because it's a cooperative, and at the end of the day, we can start a bank as well. So I wish my Jeremy was here. You see, I must that he was the one that taught me these things. And today, the guy is stranded, and he's fighting to put the bread on the table. But he's the one that, out of all the engagements of he's the one that brought us together and stood there for everyone. So those are the people we must make proud and stand together again. I would love to see that, because in the meeting, my heart was sore, man, because yes, all the good ideas, companies and things, but if you don't have a following, if you have this light, it's not going to work. Someone is going to shoot it down. So let's come together in Ubuntu. In the Khoisan, it's Abamaka, Abakwa, it's Abamaka. So we must let Abamaka in Ubuntu, in unity, so that we can all get money or what we want, medicinal value, or whatever the case may be out of this equally. Taikangansi, I mean, I must say, ukumploke.
Thank you so much, Zaino. It's an honor to have you here and to have everyone here. I really do highly appreciate that feedback, and you know, it's 100% like you highlight. The only way we can do this is together. You know, from the licensed facilities to the clubs, to the growers in the rural areas, to the growers in Pondoland, to the Khoisan. We need to all shape an all-inclusive policy, and that's why it's encouraging to see through associations and efforts such as Mbosa driving the Cannabis National Dialogue that we are finally reaching that pivotal point where, you know, government is listening to us. Now we just need to show that we come with a unified voice so that they can take us seriously. And with that, I see a lot of comments there from Talia Vedat. I don't know if we want to just give her an opportunity to present, because there's a lot of criticism there from her side. Let's just first, you're welcome to raise your hand. Let's just first move on to Andre Jochems.
Greetings, Tawates, Kauisa, my people. Thank you for making this possible, this dialogue. I'm Andre, I'm here out in Cape Town. I represent the GAM on this side, which is the Songkwa for the Cape Metro. I'm also a traditional health practitioner, registered by African National Healers Association, and I represent 6 of the Bushman tribes for our indigenous plant, herbs, and Kanza is one of them. So I've been in and out of the dialogue because I just past 12, I've been connected and heard about it. So there was a quick short notice, but I managed to get the gist of it. And what we agree is that a moratorium needs to be issued immediately to stop all police arrests, abuse, and harassment that's happening. And just yesterday, because I get all the calls, I've been arrested. I spent 50 days in Pollsmoor now, a couple of months ago. I'm out on bail. Just yesterday, I'm on the run in Delft. Him, his wife, and his kids were tear gas. He is in hospital, and his 2 dogs got shot. And police found no guns by him. The back door neighbor, Ayman Betas, his wife was arrested with a kilo of trim, you know, and released later saying this was just an inquiry. They don't know what trauma our people is going through on a daily basis here on the Cape Flats, where every day we see in each mall there's a pop-up shop, there's a dispensary, there's a social club, but here on the Ketters, on the Cape Flats, it's still rockers here. Police is going out of their way and making it known they're coming to rob us and hurt our people. But foremost, the trauma they are putting on our people yet again. So we as a community, I link with the Garasta community, we feel still marginalized and oppressed, and it feels like still apartheid law, because that's what's happening here. So I'm just giving you real-time data what is currently happening now. And every other single day, if we don't get stopped along the road and our stuff get taken, our doors still get kicked down. So we need to strategize, formalize that we can be part of the economics, because our ancient people have been carrying this fight from that time, but still we the descendants, we are still suffering in a lot of aspects. And ganja, daga is een van die myn dinge wat ons wil fight. Some of our people, we ons rookie net omdat ons anxieties for the present, we need just to smoke because it helps us get through the situation that we've been putting through, various laws and stuff that is still enslaving us. So yes, I just needed to put for that, and I would like to get on board with after this contact so that we can liaise further via email. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Andre. It's very important that we highlight the actual situation on the ground, because as SACCA representing the social club sector, the reality is, whilst majority of the outlets across the country are operating without any interference from law enforcement, the people just trying to keep their families alive and that have carried this plant for all of us that have these clubs today, they are the ones suiking on the agterste piet, and they are the ones being harassed and brutalized. And that is the main, the main thing we must stress. I think Fields of Green did an absolutely brilliant job in March to interact with the appropriate government departments to get that through to them. Now our goal must be to change the laws and to educate the police. And I completely agree with that. The moratorium on the arrests is, most effective way how we can immediately accomplish that. So that is something definitely that we have to push for, and we'll put some priority on that on the agenda, and also interact with some of the other organizations such as Fields of Green for All and SACCA to accomplish that. With that being said, as we unlock this industry and economy, we need to ensure that clubs don't take the bread out of our local indigenous communities' mouths. We must ensure that they can serve as a vehicle which can empower these communities without taking over their market. So that is absolutely our main intention. We don't want corporate capture. It's okay if they want their discoms and if they want their dispensaries, let them have it. But let's make it, they have to pay their sin tax. All these outlets must be required to represent the products of the Rasta communities, so that we can help them and give them the required support so that they can also open up clubs and also start building up their value chain, which has so been marginalized. And that's just my feedback to your input. Thanks, Andre. Can I just pass on to Michael, Big Mike from High Street Network? I see you, Brett. Sorry, can you just unmute yourself, Brett?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I represent 420 Central, including High Street. So my question is pretty simple. I just want to really find out, in terms of the hub, are we really that confident to say that that one solution will be able to fix all the problems in and around the country? Because what I keep hearing is that it's legacy farmers and the pressure that has been put on these private social cannabis clubs that they need to include legacy farmers on their shelves and all that. And then my second question is, with that then as the hub, how do we then revitalize spaces for our indigenous growers to have proper funding to be able to get the flower out there tested and then brought into the club shelves? Because I think funding is a big issue. It's one thing to say that we want to include them, but if they don't have the particular resources to be able to enter the market, it's as good as us just dangling a carrot in front of them. In a nutshell, that's just me. So if you could please just advise on those particular points. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Big Mike. That's extremely valid points. At the moment, this is a proposal. So this is our proposed solution. The solution is already out there. The market exists. We need to formalize it. But whilst we do that, we need to ensure we don't do it whilst we do it, we don't push out those marginalized communities, which we keep on stressing on. So that is why the mechanism of a hub comes in, because as you say, not all these rural growers have land or the access to open their own clubs. So if we have the paradigm and the outlook of these outlets which are now all spread across the country, if we can use them as distribution points for those growers. And then we also propose the introduction of something like a cannabis development fund. So these can be, funded through tax revenue generated by commercial outlets, as well as through regional hubs. And then as well, we can look at, like we say, with all these outlets, if we propose a type of a funding program where if each club can just contribute, if 1,000 clubs can already contribute 100 Rand or 200 Rand a month, then we've got a small pool of money to start interacting with these growers and providing them with the necessary resources. But we need to root our policies in that and ensure that regulations allow for that type of economic upliftment. And that's why we need the input from industry experts as well. Because I definitely see it's not a be-all, end-all solution, but it's an instrument in part of the bigger picture to connect the clubs with the rural growers, so that they can have offtake for their products. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. I just want to move on to UJNPO. We've got a raised hand there. Is there anyone else with questions or want to raise any key points of discussion? Now's a chance. We've got everyone in the room. Okay, Fresh Leaf.
Hi, my name's Godfrey Skeppers, and I just want to say to everyone, congratulations on creating this platform. I think you've created a platform for very, very needed discussion to be had. I think one of the things that needs to also really be focused on, especially for the indigenous growers, is to understand that, yes, the local market is a big market. It is a market that we should be using to build our export market off of. And they should have access to that market, but they should not be excluded from the export market. Our export market, or the international market, is a huge market, and where the community growers are really going to capitalize is to be able to access that market. We are not going to be able to turn Africa into an international supplier, and we're not going to be able to maintain the volumes required for this industry if we do not bring our indigenous growers into the fold and create that revenue or create that market channel for them. So yes, I think the club model is an important model to focus on. It will put finances into the hands of people who are trying to develop the industry. But I think there should be a very big focus put on a potential export market and how to give heritage, legacy, and indigenous growers access to that market.
Yeah, that's a brilliant feedback once again, and it's something we've deliberated on as well. That's why if we can structure a sort of a tiered licensing, within my capacity, I'm not completely informed on all the various criteria which you should meet to be approved for export. But if we can introduce a kind of a clause to the UN Convention where we with research-backed papers, we can clearly state the situation to them that South Africa's indigenous communities have been extremely marginalized for the past decade due to prohibitional laws, and due to that, we need to consider rescheduling cannabis so that we can open a sort of a gateway for export for our landrace strains, because that can carry significant value across the globe. I'm not sure whether that must be specifically for medicinal purposes. I know the big focus is on medicinal, and that's why this is an open conversation. From our perspective, you know, we need to steer away from that, because technically cannabis shouldn't be treated in the same class as heroin. It doesn't have the same associated effects. You know, it doesn't have nearly as much the same harm. If you look at things like tobacco and alcohol, you can just walk into the shop and get it. But when it comes to cannabis, you know, there's absolutely no regulations, and that we want a doctor's prescription where it's much less harmful. So, you know, that's all ludicrous, and I'm confident enough that, you know, we've come this far since the 2018 judgment. It's been now, you know, 7 years. We're moving on, and we see little progress on legislative side. But I think we can all pat ourselves on the back as a cannabis community for all the groundwork we've done, because today we are positioned uniquely where we can possibly be one of the first countries in the world that, you know, that does things differently. Instead of this being captured as a corporate medicinal pharmaceutical regime-based industry, it can be put back into the hands of our indigenous people. Yeah, I've got a raised hand. Can I just ask you to unmute yourself? UJ in NPO?
Yes, greetings once again, man. Mine was to raise a very serious caution, my brothers and sisters, in as much as I love everyone, you know. Those who are running clubs, be careful, please. When it comes to December time, around this time, towards festive, the system becomes more evil, you know. You might end up losing even the house that you run a club in, you know. We can't ignore what the NPA has done last week, arresting, charging someone for dealing with 300 ganja, you know, and then give him a big punishment, you know, of taking his house and expecting 30,000 each, you know. So I'm raising this on a serious note, you know, to say we are also cowards, you know, as industry players, because one of our person has been arrested and we are doing nothing, like it is said, people, nothing at all. I was to propose to say maybe let this meeting take a proposal of creating a fund, you know, make a donation so that we could challenge this judgment. And these things are caused by some of us in these groups, you know, because some of us in these groups, we work with certain people who are not good in the system, and those people end up making the lives of others to be harsh. So I am saying, one, let's do something on the person who is arrested. There are lawyers that are there who said that they can support. If you know that person, please inbox me. If you have his contacts, inbox me, because there are lawyers who say they want to directly help that person. Unfortunately, I don't know that person directly, so we want to help. But we also want to caution our people to say, let's be careful. The demon of democracy is more dangerous than the demon of apartheid. During apartheid, we never saw these things. Now it is worse. So let me not spoil the mood, you know, or the excitement, but just say to all members who are here, the South African police system, together with the NPA, have set their heart against us, the cannabis people. They say they are going to make sure that they destroy us and we don't see our light of day when it comes to cannabis use, not commercialization. I'm still speaking of use. So police can do a clandestine style, go to your place, pretend that they are members, and they buy, and then after they buy, they bust you. While saying that, on the other hand, I've seen another brother of mine here in Katlego. He was arrested last week, Monday, and then they took his cannabis. Today, his cannabis was returned. So there is that also that is happening. There is too much double standard happening in the cannabis industry, and it needs all of us, you know, to come together and share ideas of saying how best can we save our community. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Yes, that is a big thing, and it comes down to what Andre said earlier. You know, one of the main things we need to do, prioritize on, is establishing moratorium of arrests so that we can prevent this from happening further forward. For the people that are now experiencing the brunt of the law, 100% aligned with what you are saying. If we see now today, we've managed to gather a large presentation. Let's put our minds and our hearts together to reach out to these people and provide some support and assistance. You know, there's associations that exist, such as Fields of Green for All, that have been doing this work for years to, you know, to combat the unlawful enforcement of cannabis. So we need to align with them, and I'll do so within my personal capacity once again, to see what we can do to drive some progress in that regard and treat it as an urgent matter, because, you know, whilst we are sitting here having this meeting, that mother is possibly in a prison cell. We're not even aware what she's going through right now. So let's just keep everyone into consideration and see if there's any way that we can, even if each club just pulls 100 Rand together a month, to pay someone like Gareth Prince or Naveen Pillay to give them the necessary legal assistance in court, as well as the, you know, the legal representatives that Fields of Green has appointed to help in these situations. But we really need to stand together as a community to help these people. It doesn't help we just open it up on our news feeds and see it on YouTube and we go on with our day. We need to engage in these discussions and, you know, treat it as a matter of urgency, because if we stand together and combat that in court, then it will set a precedent for that not to happen again. So with that, I want everyone to, you know, just keep an eye out on the open forum, and let's see if we can make a solution for, even if it's just for now, a temporary funding program. But we won't facilitate that through SACCA. I would suggest that we do that through a more established organization such as Fields of Green for All, which already has all the mechanisms in place to accomplish that. But with that, yeah, I just want to pass over to Chidisha. I see you've got your hands raised.
Thank you, Albertos. Just to have a way forward, a reminder that all the people who are within the traditional healers, traditional leaders, cluster, please do email mbosanat@gmail.com, as we are coordinating a dialogue that's going to be focusing on the traditional healers and leaders. And then second of all, also the club. If you remember from the last meeting, the DTIC wanted to have a club meeting and the Sneyman gathering. I'm also organizing that. So the traditional healers, Kwesel, and traditional leaders, please do email us your contact so that we can try to arrange that meeting as part of the dialogue. And we'd like to encourage the community of the Cannabis community to say, let's continue to have this dialogue. These dialogues are just not going to fall on deaf ears. This is a report that we must submit to the national dialogue to show them that the industry has been engaging, and also we must take part in the ward initiative of the ward-based dialogue, the physical dialogues, where everybody who doesn't have access to the internet can be actually have their voice, have their say. The next step, we are going to KZN month end, and then in December we are going to close it up with Eastern Cape those are still details that we still have to finalize. But nonetheless, and also would like to apologize for Astabo going out because of we are on the road. As Tapelo has mentioned, we just went and collected the cannabis from the police station. And as you saw, they used the propaganda machine against our organization, but we came victorious. And yet again, we are still proving to the government that we can be responsible business people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chadiso. Thanks for that. Yes, I want to urge everyone here, like I stated earlier in the call, if we can, we'll just keep an eye open for the National Cannabis Dialogue, which is being hosted by Marijuana Board of South Africa, and to participate in those discussions. I just want to move on to Iona Grosh. I see you've got your hands raised.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to wanted just to ask on the national dialogue on the dates. I'm very new to the group, so I've missed out on a lot of stuff that was posted before. I am part of the Kwenkam community of the West Coast, and we practice indigenous knowledge, which is it's very most of the time overlooked. Indigenous knowledge is the obvious herbalist and also predominantly part, especially within the cannabis industry, predominantly the Rastafari people that you see. This kind of knowledge is an unspoken knowledge which is not really recognized by our government industries, because they normally go for foreign knowledge which is against our indigenous culture. So our indigenous culture knows exactly about how, what, and when, seasonal solstices and all those things, and we as the communities cannot be left aside or cannot be left or put one side without having proper dialogue with all our Kwenkam communities and our Rastafari communities and the Sakmana. They call them the Sakmana, people that goes into the field and knows exactly which herb is healing what ailment you're having. So we have a combined understanding, the knowledge of being that social entrepreneur that is selling that rooiwortel or that buchu or whatever on the street. That is an inherited knowledge that they're carrying, and especially it goes with the health sector, which is part of the herbal and the medical sector. That is the healing sector. Sorry, the healing sector. Let me rather not say medical. The healing sector, and we have to, with no whatsoever, we have to really reconsider before we actually endorse any laws. We have to make sure that the public participation is done properly. That all these people, all the whole nation, the Kwenkam, all the people from the various sectors, from the various areas are involved in the finalization of each and every charter or sector within this cannabis industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iona. Just to go back to the root of your question, the schedule for the upcoming national dialogues. Chadiso, if I could just ask if you can drop a link in the messages. We'll drop a schedule on the forum. I've posted a link there, and according to what we take away from today's meeting, we'll propose a schedule there for upcoming meetings, which align with BOSA's existing arranged dialogues, so that it can contribute towards that. And just going back to the indigenous knowledge systems, that is another topic where where we also need to, as a cannabis sector, gain better understanding on, because we hear these terms of IKS systems and the IKS sandbox, but we need to unravel that and see exactly what it means and how it can be implemented so that it can benefit the indigenous communities. But yeah, with that, as Amy stated there in the comments as well, the IKS Act isn't active law yet either. So we need to address all these things and through our collective input, iron out all these issues so that we come with a unified plan. And the last thing, I just want to respond on your input, Iona. If I can just urge you and everyone else here to extend an open invitation to all representatives of indigenous communities and traditional leaders so that they can participate in future conversations that we might have. The meeting notes, you've said you've joined a little bit later. There will be meeting notes that we'll publish on the forum. Regarding the recording, we've recorded the meeting, but unfortunately I haven't gathered consent in the beginning of the meeting to share or distribute it. So we'll see if we can possibly figure that out to collect some highlights and key points which we can distribute. That is our intention, but we'll just make that more clear in future meetings. This was now just to establish a platform, and we're very delighted and honored to see the outcome. You know, we've had a lot of people attend today, and I just want to thank everyone for your time. And once again, applaud the cannabis community out there. You know, it feels like we are going nowhere, but today at least we stand here united. So that is a great step towards progress. If we can all sit and, you know, discuss what are our grievances and what are our main concerns so that we come aligned when we approach government, then they might consider us and take us seriously. The whole problem of police enforcement and corruption, we're all very aware of that, but we are the people, we are the power. So with, you know, with a sacred connection to cannabis and, you know, all its spiritual applications, I believe with our good intention, with this universal timing, perhaps we can stand a chance, you know, and if we do get proper regulations in place, that can perhaps be the catalyst and the pivotal point to start rooting out some of this corruption. Because I am aware of lots of evidence that has been gathered of corrupt police officials. You know, clubs have cameras in their clubs where they can document these cases of violating their rights as police officers. And if we can use that to defend ourselves in court and, you know, have these cases tested, then perhaps it can be put back into the hands of the people. So, yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. I'm just going to hand over to Brett unless we've got any final questions. Please keep an eye out on the SACCA forum. I've dropped the link there. If there's anyone else that wants to drop links or contact details, please feel free to do so in the message box. I'm just going to hand over to Brett to wrap it up for us. Yeah, just once again from SACCA side, massive thank you to everyone here, and keep up the good work. We can do this. Sorry, Brett, do you just want to unmute yourself?
So there we go. Thanks very much, Albertus, and congratulations on organizing this initiative and being the main driver of it. And also thank you to all the participants from governments, especially the Deputy Minister from Public Administration, Pinky Kekana, and John Jeffrey, who's with the unit working with DTIC. And coming out of that, what we got was a government's willingness to listen and engage before any final regulations are published. I think one of the best ideas that came out was having a national cannabis summit on 420 Day next year, the Marijuana Board of South Africa suggestion. And there's also amazing signs of creativity in looking for solutions to the crazy situation the industry finds itself in. And I think one of the main issues or things to take note of coming out of this is the whole issue of inclusion and exclusion and how we go forward. But I think that's from my side, from Cannabis Africa, we'll be publishing all news relevant to this, obviously, and we'll put up the schedule for the dialogue as well. And Bosa, if you could send it through to us, we'll put that up as well. And thank you everybody for participating. I think this has been very positive, and we'll speak again soon. All the best. Thank you from our side.
Yeah, guys, if anyone wants to engage in conversation, you know, the floor is open. Please don't feel obligated to leave. It's yeah, if you want to engage in any further discussion, it is off the record. But yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, I'll mute myself from here. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
thanks, Brett. Long time we don't see you in the space. We are glad to see you back now with a big bounce.
Yes.
And also, we spoke about the IKS. This is not a law now, but we are supported by the Chapter 12 of the Constitution, a customary law. That's why we need to work with the traditional leaders.
Okay, thanks, Magoshi. What I suggest is in one of our future discussions, you will notice on this program as well, the IKS is a part of the key discussion points. So we'll have to definitely put some attention to that to just gain clarity and insights around that. So yeah, definitely thank you for the input.